Okay, now we're going to be looking at problems with the quadratic formula still, but this time our solutions are going to be irrational. So we're going to still have the quadratic formula. Let's get this a little bit less blurry. With irrational solutions. Okay. A reminder. Okay, remember in the quadratic formula we end up taking the square root of a number. So examples of rational square roots are, for example, like the square root of 81. Well, this is a rational number, it just equals 9. The square root of 49. This is a rational number, it just equals 7. Numbers can be big, like, look, the square root of 1,369. If I put this in my calculator, right? Remember, you can use your calculator for this. So if I'm going to put this, I'm going to write second, and then this button, the x squared button, that's square root, right? This is a really big number. I don't know this square root off the top of my head, but it's still rational, right? This is the number 37. Okay, now, remember there are square roots that we cannot take the square root of. These are called irrational. For example, the square root of 34. This is an irrational number. Okay, if I take the square root of 34, I get this horrible decimal. It's never ending. It doesn't repeat. This is irrational, right? The square root of 73 is irrational. The square root of 161. These are numbers that do not have a clean square root. These are irrational numbers. Okay, and sometimes when we use the quadratic formula, under that square root sign, we end up with a number that can't be square rooted, and therefore it's irrational. It turns out it's actually less work because we can't take the square root, so we just don't. Okay, so here's an example. Here's my problem. 8x squared minus 7x plus 1 equals 0. Okay, and it starts off very much the same. So I'm going to identify my A, my B, and my C. So my A value here, the number being multiplied by x squared is 8. My B value is the number being multiplied by x, which is negative 7. And my C value is the number by itself, which is 1. Okay, and I'm still going to use the same quadratic formula. So x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. I'm going to use the same formula. I'm going to plug in. It's going to start off just the same, but when we get to that square root step, you're going to see we're not going to be able to square root, and we're just going to kind of stop there, it turns out. Okay, so let's start. X equals, okay, opposite of b. In this case, b is negative, so the opposite of b is positive, right? So opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared. So this is b squared. My b is negative 7 squared minus 4 times a times c. So 4 times a is 8 times c is 1 over 2a. Okay. All right. Let's take this part off to the side. Okay, so I'm doing negative 7 squared. That's negative 7 times negative 7. Now remember, that's the same as 7 times 7, but it's okay if you don't remember that, right? Negative 7 times negative 7 is positive 49. Okay, now look, I'm going to do negative 4 times 8 times 1, negative 4 times 8 times 1. You can do this in your head, right? Times 1, it doesn't do anything. Negative 4 times 8 is negative 32, and then times 1 is still going to be negative 32. And then let's do this math. So this is 49 minus 32, and I get 17. So this says square root of 17. Now look, you can always just double check and make sure, like, oh, but I don't think there's a square root of 17. Oh yeah, I'm right. There isn't a square root of 17. And in fact, this can't even be simplified, right? Like we've simplified square roots in the past, and we're going to again. But like this, I can't even factor. 17 is actually prime. There's like really nothing I can do with this. So I just get the square root of 17, and there's really nothing more I can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back into the formula. I have 7 plus or minus the square root of 17 over, and then look, 2 times 8, let's do this math. 2 times 8 is 16. And this is it. There's literally nothing more I can do because I can't simplify the square root of 17, so I'm just done. And you're just going to type it like this. You just type it as a fraction and type the plus or minus sign and the square root sign and just type everything in just like this. And that's it.